my grandfather left behind 2 necklaces. In my past life, my cousin Selena snatched the Moonstone necklace and gained the ability to create a still space. Wearing the ebony necklace, I awakened my healing powers. My blood could even neutralize toxins. But I also became a walking first aid kit. To save a man she'd known for only 3 days, she forced me to bleed, but when that failed, she actually dragged me off the building. When I opened my eyes again, we were back on the day we were choosing necklaces. Selena snatched the ebony necklace first, her eyes brimming with relief. I casually slipped on the Moonstone necklace, but inside I was sneering. She thought she'd stolen the future, but she had no idea that this healing ability would drag her into an even deeper hell. And since I possessed the stasis space, I had the power to rewrite fate 7 days in advance. I traced the non-existent wound on my neck, and the sound of the zombie horde chewing still lingered in my ears. Getting a second chance at life isn't a blessing. It's forcing me to become ruthless enough within 7 days. The wind is still blowing outside the window, but I'm no longer that girl who just waits for someone to save her. I must turn every minute into a chip to stay alive. Back at my rental apartment, I locked the door from the inside. I let a drop of blood fall onto the Moonstone. A white light flashed, and I stepped into a boundless white mist. There was only a small patch of light beneath my feet, but as soon as I placed an object there, the white mist would disperse outward. More importantly, time stood completely still within this space. Food would never spoil. First, I cleared out all the food from the fridge. Then I opened the lending app and withdrew every last penny I could borrow. In 7 days, social order will collapse. Debt will be nothing more than a string of numbers. There are 5 days left on the countdown. I must stockpile food, medicine, weapons, and fuel, and find a safe house that no one can easily break into. In my past life, I survived by healing others. In this life, I must first learn to save myself. The truck drives through neighborhoods where the neon lights still shine. Passers-by are still chatting, working overtime, and complaining about life. No one knows that in a few days they'll be killing each other over half a bottle of water. I must stay one step ahead of the apocalypse. I must turn every minute into a chip for survival. Don't look back. Don't stop. First, I cleared out the farmer's market. I bought boxes of long-lasting vegetables like potatoes, sweet potatoes, cabbage, and carrots. I also stocked up on meat, eggs, and fruit. Then I rushed to the supermarket and loaded cart after cart with rice, flour, cooking oil, salt, sugar, seasonings, compressed biscuits, energy bars, canned goods, instant noodles, and self-feeding meals. Medicines were a must. Fever reducers, antibiotics, painkillers, iodine solution, bandages, and gas masks filled nearly half the warehouse. The next day, I rented a truck and headed to the wholesale market to stock up on tissues, underwear, sleeping bags, tents, flashlights, and batteries. Finally, I bought machetes, shovels, stab-proof vests, and helmets. In the apocalypse, the greatest luxury isn't jewelry, but clean water. Enough calories and a weapon capable of chopping off a monster's head. I crossed out one item on my shopping list only to add another. Enough food. Enough drinking water. I couldn't even forget. Toilet paper, lighters, and seasonings. Survival has never depended on just a bag of rice. I gripped my weapon tightly and told myself I must never give up. I will never back down. After gathering all the supplies, I rented a car and headed to the Songlin guest house. It's located halfway up the mountain, with no neighbors in sight. The perfect place to the chaos of the early days of the apocalypse. As I organized the space, I kept an eye on the news. It wasn't until the back of the truck was packed full of steel plates that I felt even a little at ease. Meanwhile, Selena had only stockpiled a token amount of snacks. She spent the rest of her money on limited edition dresses, handbags, and jewelry. She was convinced that after her rebirth, she would become the center of the apocalypse, with powerful men all revolving around her. Early on the 5th day, it actually began to snow heavily in October. I knew this was a sign of disaster. In my previous life, the day after the snowfall, the infected would appear. On TV, experts were still reassuring the public, saying it was just a common flu. But behind the camera, a staff member with greenish-blue skin burst in and bit through the expert's throat in one go. The screen went static. The apocalypse had officially begun. But I knew the real danger wasn't just the virus. It was also the darkness after the power went out, the starving crowds, and fellow humans looting in the chaos. The real test was yet to come. Only when the back of the truck was packed full of steel plates did I feel slightly at ease. But I knew the real danger wasn't just the virus. It was also the darkness after the power went out, the starving crowds, and fellow humans looting in the chaos. The real test was yet to come. There was a frantic pounding on the door of my guest house. A couple, holding their child, begged me to open the door, saying the zombies were right behind them. But through the peephole, I could clearly see the child's skin had already turned blue. In my previous life, I'd let them in out of pity, only for the infected to bite an entire group of survivors in the middle of the night. This time, I leaned against the door and waited in silence. Soon, the child lunged at its mother, and the father fled in terror. 10 minutes later, I finally opened the door. The woman was already dead, and the mutated child was crawling across the lawn. I gripped the fruit knife tightly and stabbed it through its skull in one swift motion. Then I extracted the crystal core from its brain. The crystal core enhances supernatural abilities. Even if I don't have the power right now, I absolutely cannot let it go to waste. The first lesson of the apocalypse is not bravery, but knowing who to save and who not to save. I wrapped the crystal core in a cloth bag, then checked the door locks and the back window. Though the guest house is remote, it can't stop someone who truly knows how to break in. I'll leave as soon as dawn breaks. I'll never let any stranger figure out my hand. The real danger always creeps up when you let your guard down. I had just finished processing the crystal cores when my former teammate Fiona stepped out of the bushes. She accused me of being able to kill zombies but refusing to save that family. In my previous life, she tried to please the Lightning Squad captain Damien. She pushed her own boyfriend into the horde to block their path, then blamed me for not saving him fast enough. I warned her to stop pretending to be a saint because survival was all that mattered in the apocalypse. But she pressed an axe against the door and tried to force me to take her in. I drew my machete and told her I would kill her first if she took another step. Fiona finally ran away, but she soon returned with a casino boss and a group of thugs. They wanted to steal my mountain inn. When they kicked open the unlocked door, they realized I had already left. Then the zombies that had slipped inside bit them. Fiona escaped during the chaos while I was already riding my bicycle down the mountain. I was going to find people who were truly worth trusting. Fiona trying to get revenge was exactly what I expected. I did not stop pedaling. Beyond the mountain road were thick fog and abandoned cars. The true map of the apocalypse was only beginning to unfold. I had to find people I could trust with my life before she did. I had to move faster and make sure no one caught up with me. After leaving the inn, I encountered a cold and striking young woman beside an abandoned house. She tore open a zombie's skull with her bare hands. She had clearly awakened a strength ability. I crouched down to dig out the crystal core, but the blood attracted 3 adult zombies and 2 mutated dogs. She kicked one of the mutated dogs away. I handed her my machete and reminded her that the head was their weak point. We fought back to back. When the last mutated dog climbed up again, she told me to run. Instead, I pushed the crystal core into her hand and helped her recover her strength. She turned around and tore the monster apart, while I finished it by cutting off its head. Her name was Nora Kane. She had been able to see the color of people's energy since childhood. She said I shone as brightly as the sun. We decided to form a team. I had supplies and she had strength. At least neither of us would have to face the zombie hordes alone again. When Nora accepted the crystal core, she did not question the origin of my storage space. She simply took the most dangerous position for herself. She did not need to make any promises. Her actions proved that she was completely different from the people in my previous life. Her strength was powerful, but the look in her eyes made me feel even safer. Do not look back. We had only rested for a moment when a black SUV stopped in front of us. The man inside was Damien Cross, the captain from my previous life. He was also the one who later tied me up and sent me away for experiments. He ordered Nora and me to get into the car. He claimed that his lightning ability could protect us. I pretended not to recognize him and turned to leave. Nora followed me, which made Damien look furious. After collecting the crystal cores, I asked Nora whether she wanted to become my permanent partner. She nodded and agreed. Meanwhile, Selena had invited all her relatives into the estate for shelter. But when the infection broke out, she only cared about saving herself. She even pushed her own mother toward the zombies. That gave her enough time to escape through the front gate. She believed the ebony necklace would make everyone adore and protect her. Instead, it exposed the darkest and most ruthless side of her nature. Explosions and screams soon came from the direction of the estate. Selena never looked back. She escaped into the night with the healing necklace, and completely transformed herself into my most dangerous enemy. In a zombie horde, someone who stands beside you without asking about the cost is even rarer than a crystal core. Nora and I entered a downtown shopping mall to search for supplies. The food section had already been completely looted, leaving only rotten vegetables and bloodstained clothes. But a young woman was hiding in the clothing section. Her name was Amy Brooks. Before the apocalypse, she had kindly helped me carry some skincare products. She had been curled up inside a cabinet for 2 days with cracked lips, but there were no wounds on her body. I handed her some water and she immediately burst into tears. Nora thought she was too timid and believed she would rather die trapped inside than risk going out. But I did not abandon her. I only gave her a folding knife and some food, then told her to get some sleep. After she woke up, I took hot soup, toasted bread, and warm milk from my storage space. Amy stared at the breakfast that appeared out of nowhere. She finally understood that she had not been abandoned. In the apocalypse, some people are not worth saving, but others deserve one chance. Amy held the warm milk with disbelief filling her eyes. She did not know that I kept her with us, not because I pitied her, I remembered that before the apocalypse, she had shown genuine kindness to a complete stranger. She deserved to survive, and my judgment proved right. After the meal, Nora began absorbing the crystal cores. Amy touched one out of curiosity, and it suddenly shrank on its own. I immediately realized that she was also an ability user. After Nora demonstrated her strength ability, Amy still could not sense her own power. I gave her several crystal cores and told her to take her time experimenting. With tears in her eyes, she asked whether we would abandon her for being a burden. I told her that refusing to play the saint did not mean being heartless. As long as she was willing to become stronger, she had the right to travel with us. A heavy storm arrived, so we temporarily stayed inside the mall. Whenever Amy became nervous, she turned into a blur. She knocked over several rows of shelves. She had finally awakened a speed ability. A few days later, she could already control her speed. She was still timid, but had begun practicing on her own. Our team of 2 had finally become a team of 3. The first time she volunteered to follow us and kill zombies, her hands were still trembling, but she did not step back. I handed her a new knife. I also made room for her in our team. I knew she would remain afraid for a long time, but she was no longer the girl who could only cry and wait to die. Do not be afraid. After leaving the mall, we encountered a broken-down bus and a group of refugees. A mid-level zombie lunged at a young couple. The man claimed he would never abandon his girlfriend, but then he grabbed a 10-year-old boy and pulled him in front of the monster. I charged forward with a sliding tackle and knocked the zombie down with a shuttle. Then I picked up a butcher knife and finished it off. The boy did not cry when he was pushed forward. He did not even look afraid. He only stared calmly at the couple. His name was Noah. He said both of his parents had already turned into zombies. While the survivors were thanking me, a burly man suddenly turned against us. He demanded to know why we had not come out sooner to save them, since we clearly had powers. I asked him with a cold laugh. Who decided that ability users had to die for strangers in the apocalypse? They immediately fell silent. The couple lowered their heads and did not dare look at me. Only the child I had saved continued observing his surroundings. The most terrifying thing in the apocalypse was not the monsters. It was people who believed someone else should sacrifice their life to protect them. After that night, weakness would only become an excuse that got people killed. I tightened my grip on my weapon and told myself that I could never retreat. Damien appeared with Selena. After his lightning killed the remaining zombies, Selena pretended to kindly invite everyone to join their convoy. She also deliberately mocked me for having no ability. I rejected her and left with Nora and Amy, but Noah volunteered to follow us and help collect crystal cores. He said he did not want to become a burden. I watched his reaction and suddenly called him by another name. The boy's expression froze. He finally admitted that the original personality had taken his own life. The person controlling the body now was the secondary personality, Noah. He had also awakened a psychic ability.
He's gone.
He could see the energy fluctuations of supernatural abilities. He could also tell that Nora possessed both strength and defensive abilities. Amy had the potential to awaken a speed ability, and countless dormant spheres of light surrounded my body. I was not afraid. I only told him that from that day forward he must never lie to us again, and that he should survive together with us. After Noah finished speaking, Amy instinctively stepped back. But then she Judon handed him some water. She had never truly been afraid of his identity. She was afraid that someone would abandon her again. That was how the 4 of us formed a new team. That was enough.
We drove past a bombed-out plaza where the charred ground was littered with headless zombies. Modern weapons could not destroy crystal cores, so we put on gloves and joined the others in digging them out. Suddenly, Noah sensed a cold consciousness and a dark figure flashed behind the ruins, moving even faster than Amy. It did not attack. It only revealed a brief green glow from a third-floor window of an unfinished building, as if it were watching us. To avoid being ambushed, I led the team away and redirected us to a convenience store in the old neighborhood. Noah detected 2 ordinary zombies and 1 massive mutant. Amy volunteered to scout ahead. When she came back, she said the mutant zombie was guarding the freezer section and its arms were thicker than her thighs. We assigned our roles and prepared to take down that high-energy crystal core. Outside the car window, the wind swept across the scorched earth, carrying the smell of burned flesh. The dark figure did not follow us, but for the first time, it made me realize that zombies might already be developing a kind of intelligence that no longer belonged to humans. That green light was like an eye that kept watching us. The real test was still ahead. Nora charged the mutant zombie head-on and slammed a punch into its shoulder, but it only staggered. Amy circled to the side and sliced open its leg, while I swung my shovel into the back of its head. Only the combined effort of all 3 of us finally brought the monster down. The deep blue crystal core contained far more energy than an ordinary one. As we were leaving, more than a dozen zombies were drawn by the smell of blood, so we blocked the store entrance with shelves, leaving only a narrow gap, and killed them one by one. After absorbing the crystal core, Amy's speed doubled and Noah's perception expanded to cover the entire street. But when Nora held the deep blue core, a pale cyan shield of light appeared in her palm. She was not only a strength type, but also a defense type. She looked at the shield in her hand and smiled, saying that now she could finally stand at the very front and protect us. What I noticed, however, was that the color of her energy was more stable than anyone else's. We did not rush to leave. Instead, we split the crystal cores and continued strengthening ourselves. Nora's shield did not cover a large area, but it was enough to block one fatal attack at a critical moment. This ability would become the most reliable line of defense for our team. The real test was still ahead. Noah sensed more than a dozen crystal cores near the stationary scene. Along with a powerful surge of lightning energy, we moved around the collapsed wall and found Damien's convoy with Selena. Damien recognized Nora's defensive ability, but still tried to force her into joining him. Selena pretended to care about me, but she was actually testing whether I also remembered our previous life. I lowered my voice and told her, I was not the one torn apart by zombies in our previous life. Her face instantly turned deathly pale. Noah then sensed many faint consciousnesses inside the hospital. They felt like survivors being held captive. In our previous life, Damien had captured living people for ability experiments. He was clearly planning to do the same thing again. We decided to follow them toward the hospital. We needed to seize the high-level crystal cores and discover what he was truly planning. As Damien left, his gaze remained on Noah for a long time. Psychic abilities were the most dangerous type, and the easiest to manipulate. I knew he would never give up on that child so easily. The zombie horde behind us was drawing closer. We could only take the risk. Do not look back. At the hospital entrance, a high-level zombie covered in dark brown armor slammed into a car and dented the hood. Damien's lightning was blocked by the armor, and his men rushed forward, only to be quickly slashed by its claws. Although Selena possessed healing light, she was clearly unwilling to waste her energy. When we arrived, Nora raised a defensive shield to take the claw strike head-on, then used her strength to break open a gap in the armor. Amy moved behind it and cut through the joints in its legs. Noah used psychic power to interfere with its consciousness, and I drove a shovel into the crack, but Damien deliberately redirected his lightning and nearly struck Nora in the back. Just as both sides were about to turn on each other, the monster began a second mutation. After being knocked down, purple poisonous mist spread through the air. To stay alive, we had no choice but to put our hatred aside for the moment and join forces against something even more terrifying. The armored zombie roared so violently that the glass shattered, and several abandoned cars were flipped over by its charge. It was not just a predator. It seemed to be guarding something more important deep inside the hospital. Everyone understood that this battle could no longer be avoided. I tightened my grip on my weapon and told myself that I could not retreat. After its second mutation, the zombie grew dramatically larger. Its claws released purple poison that caused anyone who inhaled it to lose consciousness. Damien used lightning to disperse the poisonous mist. Noah created a psychic barrier. Amy moved behind the monster and attacked its joints. Nora held back the shockwave. While I found a crack in its armored head and drove my shovel into it, Damien tried once again to steal the victory with his lightning. But Nora forced him back with a punch. The monster finally collapsed. I broke its crystal core into two halves and threw one half to Damien in exchange for leaving the survivors inside the hospital alone. But Noah grabbed my hand and said an even stronger source of energy remained deep inside the hospital. Selena was already absorbing it. A zombie horde was gathering around the hospital in the distance. We hid inside a narrow alley and decided to enter through the back door. The true danger had never been the high-level zombie. Even after the battle ended, Damien continued staring at the hospital. He clearly had no intention of giving up. Selena was also smiling with unnatural gentleness, as though the energy inside was already calling to her. Everyone understood that this battle could no longer be avoided. Never retreat. Do not look back. 3 mutated zombies were guarding the hospital's back entrance. After eliminating them, we slipped into the 3rd floor. A purple crystal, half the height of a person, stood inside the room at the end of the corridor. Selena was frantically absorbing its energy, while Damien lay unconscious on the floor. She had clearly ambushed him. She laughed and said that with the purple crystal, she could become the strongest woman in the apocalypse. I warned her that the energy would consume her, but she responded by launching a burning blade of light. Noah's psychic attack made her freeze for a moment. and I strengthened my shovel with a crystal core before smashing it into the purple crystal. A burst of blinding light exploded through the room. Selena began convulsing, and Damien's lightning turned purple. A roar powerful enough to shake the entire building came from the fractured crystal. A gigantic shadow of a zombie emerged from inside. Noah turned pale and said it was using the purple crystal to create a physical body. We finally understood. This was not a treasure. It was an incubator for the Zombie King. The entire hospital floor began trembling. The zombie horde downstairs reacted as though it had heard the call of its king. Selena's ambition and Damien's obsession with control had finally dragged us into a disaster with no way back. The countdown was growing shorter. I could not stop preparing. The purple crystal exploded with energy again, and I instinctively shielded Noah and Amy. The agony I expected never came. Instead, a warm power surged into my body. Pale gold, pale blue, and pale green clusters of light rose from me. Noah said in shock that I had awakened multiple abilities, including healing, telekinesis, and perception. Selena went mad with jealousy and lunged at me with her blade of light. I used perception to see through her movements in advance, then used telekinesis to bind her wrist. Meanwhile, Noah held back the Zombie King Phantom, and Nora smashed a crack into its leg with one punch. I formed a sword of light and drove it into the Phantom's chest, and it began to turn transparent. But the purple crystal pulled it back again. Too many abilities threw my power into chaos, and Selena seized the chance to attack. At the critical moment, Noah used a psychic light spike to heavily damage her mind. Damien also briefly regained consciousness and offered to help me destroy the purple crystal. The Moonstone on my chest was burning hot as well, as if it had finally found the key to unlocking its true power. So the space was not my only trump card. Fate had still left me one more chance to fight back. Never retreat. Do not be afraid. With Damien's help, I stabilized my abilities. I used perception to find the weakest crack in the purple crystal, then shattered it with my sword of light. After the crystal exploded, a black sphere rolled across the floor. Noah shouted in terror that it was the core of the Zombie King. It suddenly flew into my palm, and freezing energy spread through my veins. The consciousness of every zombie in the distance was pulled toward me. A dark shadow began forming outside the hospital. The core tempted me to stop resisting and let it use my body to command the zombie horde. Noah grabbed me and wrapped my consciousness in his psychic power. He reminded me to use perception to recognize its lies. I forced my healing and telekinetic energy into my palm and temporarily suppressed the core. But the zombie horde had already surrounded the hospital. For the first time, Damien stopped calculating his own advantage and decided to use his lightning to clear a path for us. I told Amy to support Noah, then bit my tongue to keep myself conscious. If the core truly took control of me, I would rather destroy myself than allow it to use my body to hurt my companions. I would never let any monster use my body to be reborn. The time we had left was only enough for me to keep moving forward. Damien's purple lightning tore open a path through the zombie horde. We followed Amy's speed and broke through, then entered an abandoned warehouse. Nora slammed the iron door shut with her strength and secured the entrance with a steel pipe. Through the broken windows, we saw the zombie horde suddenly stop and gather toward the same location. The phantom of the Zombie King was becoming clearer. The core pulsed inside my palm, constantly tempting me to accept its power. Low growls filled my ears. I could even feel the hunger and killing intent of the entire horde. Noah transformed his psychic power into warm light and reminded me that everything I sensed was a trap. Damien also said the core was feeding on my abilities to become stronger. We had to destroy it. Otherwise, no one would survive once the Zombie King gained a physical body. We decided to purify the core together, even if doing so exhausted all of our strength. The warehouse air smelled of rust and dust, but the black core burned hot as though it had a heartbeat. Every time it pulsed, the zombie horde outside moved another step closer. We were running out of time. I tightened my grip on my weapon and told myself that I could never retreat. I placed the core in the center of the warehouse. My healing and telekinetic abilities condensed into a sword of light. Nora raised a defensive barrier. Amy guarded the entrance. Noah used his psychic power to sever the connection between the core and the zombie horde, while Damien used purple lightning to suppress the black energy. The dark power was beginning to disappear, but the iron door was suddenly smashed open. Selena charged inside with her hair in disarray, screaming that the core belonged to her. She struck Nora's shield with a blade of light, allowing the black energy to escape. The phantom of the Zombie King began taking shape again in the distance, and pieces of the warehouse ceiling started falling. Damien finally admitted that he had made terrible mistakes in the past. and volunteered to help purify the energy remaining inside my body. But Selena seemed to have completely lost her mind. She pulled out a poisoned dagger from behind her back and aimed it at Nora while she was maintaining the shield. I saw the unnatural blue-black glow covering the blade. It had clearly been coated with poison in advance. She had never truly wanted to survive. She only wanted to climb above everyone else, even if she had to stand on a mountain of corpses. The roars outside the warehouse grew louder and more numerous. Like death pounding on the door, the true test was still ahead. The moment I sensed Selena's killing intent, Nora had already thrown herself in front of me and took the poisoned blade in her back. Her shield could block supernatural abilities, but it could not stop metal at such close range. Blood quickly soaked through her clothes, and the poison spread from the wound toward her heart. I poured all of my healing light into her body, but discovered that the poison had already reached her core. Nora held my hand and smiled as she said that surviving with us until now was already enough. She asked me to see our rebuilt home for her. Noah knelt beside her and cried silently. Amy turned her face away because she could no longer bear to watch. For the first time, regret appeared in Damien's eyes. Selena tried to strike again, but Damien stepped in front of me and formed his lightning into a blade that pierced her chest. She laughed wildly and said that she had only wanted to become stronger, then collapsed into a pool of blood. As I held Nora, the warmth slowly faded from her body. She once said that my energy shone like the sun, but now she had used the last of her own light to shield us from the darkest blade. I will remember her final words for the rest of my life. After Selena fell, the connection between the core and the Zombie King was finally severed. A piercing roar came from outside the warehouse. The enormous black phantom began fading, and the zombie horde lost its direction, scattering in every direction. But none of us celebrated. Nora's hand slowly fell, and the defensive light in her palm completely disappeared. I held her while sitting on the cold floor, and did not let go until sunrise. Damien stood silently in the distance. Noah cried until no sound came out. Amy wiped Nora's machete clean and placed it beside her. We had won the most dangerous battle, but lost the first person who had trusted me enough to guard my back. 3 days later, the zombie horde outside the warehouse had thinned, leaving only a few scattered monsters. I carefully stored Nora's crystal core and shield emblem, and decided to lead everyone away from this city filled with death. I carved Nora's name into the warehouse wall, and promised myself that her death would not be meaningless. The apocalypse had taken too many people, but it could never take away our right to remember them and continue living. The true test was still ahead. After leaving the warehouse, Damien no longer called himself the captain. He only used his lightning to clear obstacles and helped carry supplies. Amy had become fast enough to easily outrun the zombie hordes, and Noah could use his psychic power to detect safe routes in advance. We eventually found an abandoned farm outside the city. It had open fields, several intact brick houses, and a small river behind the property. Noah scanned the entire area and confirmed that there were no zombies. Only then did I take shovels, axes, ropes, seeds, and fertilizer from my storage space. Amy cleaned the houses. Damien used lightning to split dead trees and build a fence, while I turned the soil and planted potatoes, sweet potatoes, and cabbage. There were no high walls or bright lights here, but there was a chance to begin again. Nora never lived to see this day, but I believed she would have loved this place, with its wind soil and green shoots. On our first night, we sat around a small fire and ate canned food. No one spoke. The river flowed slowly through the darkness, as though preserving the final breath of this dead land. The time we had left was only enough for me to keep moving forward. The first month on the farm was extremely difficult. During the day, we repaired roofs, dug irrigation channels, and reinforced the fences. At night, we took turns standing guard against zombies and mutated animals. Once, a group of mutated rabbits broke into the vegetable field and devoured half a row of seedlings. Amy chased them for the entire night before driving them away. Another time, Damien was clearing dead trees when a zombie hiding inside a hollow trunk scratched him. I instinctively remembered how I had been treated like a walking medicine cabinet in my previous life, but I still used my healing light to remove the infection. Damien quietly thanked me and did not ask for anything more. I told him that saving him did not mean I had forgiven the past. I did it because our team could not afford to lose another companion. Noah remembered those words and began practicing his psychic barrier on his own. We all understood that surviving did not mean forgetting our pain. It meant carrying that pain while continuing to build tomorrow. Whenever I stood watch at night, I could hear the wind moving through the vegetable field. It was not a zombie horde. It was the seedlings, taking root in the dark soil. Every time I heard it, I felt as though Nora was still protecting us. In the second month, the crops on the farm finally began to sprout. Morning dew clung to the leaves, like the most luxurious jewels in the apocalypse. Noah used his psychic power to patrol the surrounding area. Amy collected rainwater. Damien repaired the simple generator, while I used the fertilizer from my storage space to care for the fields. By the third month, the potatoes and sweet potatoes were ready to harvest. We held a small celebration around the fire, and the smell of roasted sweet potatoes filled the yard. Amy took a bite with tears in her eyes and said Nora would have loved them. No one answered, but we all placed the first roasted sweet potato on Nora's empty chair. Damien handed me some warm water and said he would spend the rest of his life making up for everything he had done. I did not respond. I only looked toward the sunset in the distance. The apocalypse was not over, but this land had already proven that humanity could still grow new life from the ashes. The firelight reflected across every face. For the first time, no one rushed to seize food or fight over crystal cores. We broke the sweet potatoes into several pieces, as though holding a small funeral for the old world. Keep moving forward. I reorganized my storage space and sorted the remaining food medicine crystal cores and seeds into separate categories. I once believed the Moonstone space was only a tool for stockpiling supplies and escaping death. Now I understood that it was more like a mobile seed vault, preserving everything humanity needed to begin again. Noah also discovered that his psychic ability could detect people whose powers had not yet awakened. Perhaps one day he could help more survivors awaken their abilities? Amy no longer hid inside a cabinet and cried. She practiced her speed every day and volunteered for the most dangerous missions outside the farm. Damien used his lightning to power the fences and storage batteries, instead of taking other people's lives. We were all changing. Zombie hordes, mutated beasts, and ambitious survivors still existed outside, but the lights on the farm came on every night. As long as someone was willing to protect the rules, the ruins would not be the end. I hung a new sign at the farm entrance. Dawnlight Farm. Raiders were not welcome here, and no one was allowed to use a companion as a bargaining chip. The rules were simple, but they were more precious than the laws of the old world. Keep going. At sunset, I stood beside the farm fence, watching the sky turn orange-red beneath the setting sun. Noah sat on a wooden crate, carefully mapping the safe routes around the farm. Amy moved through the vegetable field like a shadow, helping us repair the fence knocked down by the wind. Damien practiced controlling his lightning in the distance, trying to make sure he never harmed innocent people again. I suddenly remembered who I was on the day I was reborn. I only wanted to stockpile supplies and take revenge, and I trusted no one. But Nora eventually taught me that a true companion was not someone with useful abilities. It was someone willing to stay when you were in the greatest danger. She was gone, but her shield still remained inside all of us. The Moonstone rested quietly against my chest. I decided to continue searching for survivors, bring them back to the farm, and teach them how to grow food, fight, and protect one another. As long as this light remained alive, we still had a future. I hung Nora's shield emblem beside the entrance. Everyone who joined the farm would see it and understand that this place still existed. Not because any one person was the strongest, but because someone had been willing to protect the people beside her forever. Another morning arrived with the farm covered in mist. The potato fields and cabbages glowed green beneath the sunlight. The apocalypse was still not over. Zombie roars could occasionally be heard in the distance, and the city was still filled with unknown dangers. But I was no longer the girl Selena had driven into desperation, forced to survive on the charity of others. After being reborn, I used my storage space to stockpile supplies. I used my choices to avoid betrayal. I relied on my companions to protect our humanity, and learned through sacrifice that power must always be restrained by kindness. Selena died because of her own desire. The zombie king disappeared into the darkness, but Nora left her courage with us. I touched the Moonstone against my chest and walked into a new day with Amy, Noah, and Damien. Today we had to patrol, water the crops, repair the fences, and continue surviving. Above the ruins, we would grow our own dawn with our own hands. A low growl came faintly through the distant mist, but I did not look back, because I knew the fields, homes, and companions behind me were enough to make me pick up my weapon again for tomorrow. The true test was still ahead.